Today, we are diving into a really cool paper called CodeOCR, and it asks a pretty wild question. What if we've been teaching AI to understand code completely wrong? What if the secret isn't in reading it, but in seeing it? So let's just start with this idea, which I know sounds a little out there. What if an AI could just look at your code, like you'd look at a photo and just get it instantly? No more reading it line by painful line, just a single glance. It's a pretty radical thought, and honestly, it's at the heart of everything we're about to get into.
But to really appreciate why that idea is such a potential game changer, we first have to talk about a huge problem that AI developers are wrestling with right now. It's this fundamental roadblock in how AI even interacts with code in the first place.
So right now, pretty much all AI models, like the large language models you hear about, use something called the text-based paradigm. And you can just think of it like this. They see a complex piece of code as just a long, flat line of text. They chop that text up into little pieces, we call them tokens, and then they just read them one by one in a straight line. And that, right there, is where we hit a wall. As our software gets bigger, more complicated, this whole one word at a time thing becomes a massive bottleneck. It's exactly like trying to understand the blueprint for an entire skyscraper by looking at it through a tiny little straw. You just completely miss the big picture, and man, is it slow. So if reading through a straw is the problem, the CodeOCR researchers came up with this brilliant and, kind of wild solution. They basically said, you know what? Let's just throw away the straw and take a picture of the whole darn thing. Okay, let's really break that down. As text, code is just a long line. It's one-dimensional. But as an image, it becomes a two-dimensional map. The AI can suddenly see the shape, the indentation, the overall structure all at once. And think about compression. Shrinking text without losing information, it's really tricky. But shrinking an image? Phew, you just lower the resolution. And that simple difference makes processing it way, way cheaper. And here's what that actually looks like. On the left, we've got a normal snippet of code. On the right is that exact same code, but it's been turned into a tiny compressed image. Now, to you and me, that thing on the right, it's just a blurry mess, right? But here's the kicker. For a modern AI, it's still perfectly understandable. And this is where the magic really happens. Just look at the cost. To process that code as text, it costs the AI 110 tokens. But to process that blurry little image, only 27 visual tokens. I mean, that is a night and day difference.
Let's put a hard number on that. That's a 75.5% reduction in the computational cost. That's the difference between something being slow and expensive and something being fast, cheap, and ready to scale.
Okay, so the theory is fantastic. It's cheaper, it's faster, it's smarter. But does it actually work? Can an AI really understand a blurry picture of code just as well as it can read the raw text? Well, the researchers put it to the test.
And the researchers, they knew just how high the stakes were. They wrote in their paper, how effectively can LLMs understand and reason over code images? The answer to this question may signal a paradigm shift. No pressure, right?
So how does an AI even see code? It's a pretty straightforward four-step process. First, the code gets rendered into an image. Second, that image gets sliced and diced into little patches. Third, and this is the really clever bit, each of those little patches is turned into a list of numbers, a sort of digital fingerprint. And finally, the AI's main brain just crunches all those numbers to understand what the code is doing.
And this all leads to the first giant question the researchers had to answer. Does this visual approach even work? I mean, really? Can an AI understand code just from a picture?
The results were frankly stunning. It was a huge yes. In a lot of their tests, the visual approach was just as good as text, and sometimes it was even better. For one specific task, figuring out if two chunks of code do the same thing, one of the models got a massive 42% performance boost just by looking at the images. Okay, so we know it works. Check. But remember, the whole point of this was to be cheaper and way more efficient. So the next logical question is, well, just how blurry can we make this picture before the AI gets completely lost?
And this next part is one of the most surprising things in the whole paper. Just look at this chart. For one task, a Q&A about code, one model's accuracy with plain old text is about 75%. With a standard image, it gets a little better. But look what happens when they compress the image by 8 times. The accuracy actually goes up. Yeah, you heard that right. 8 times more compressed. The AI understood the code better when it was blurrier. The theory here is that this crazy compression forces the AI to ignore all the little distracting details and focus on what really matters, the high-level structure. But the researchers didn't stop there. They started thinking, okay, since we're basically dealing with pictures now, can we use visual tricks to help the AI out? So they tested something every single one of us developers uses every day, syntax highlighting. And you can see exactly what they tested right here. On the left, you've got your plain black and white code. On the right, the same code, but with all those nice colors that highlight different keywords and variables. The idea was super simple. If colors help us humans read code, maybe they'll help an AI too. And it turns out, yep, it absolutely helps. Adding color gave a real measurable performance boost. But there's a catch. It only works up to a certain point. They found this sweet spot of moderate compression. If you make the image too blurry, the colors just kind of wash out and don't really make a difference anymore. So, when you put all of these pieces together, what does it really mean for the future? Well, the paper makes a pretty bold claim. When it comes to AI and code, the future is visual. So let's just recap the new blueprint this research gives us. First, massive efficiency. We're talking up to an 8x reduction in cost. Second, a smarter, more holistic understanding. The AI is finally seeing the whole blueprint, not just looking through the straw. And third, this isn't just about code. This could be a genuine paradigm shift in how AI understands any kind of structured information. In the end, the author's own words really sum it up perfectly. They say, this research points to a pathway to more efficient inference. In other words, this isn't just some cool academic experiment. It's a practical roadmap for building smarter, faster AI. And all of this leaves us with a truly fascinating question to chew on. As AI becomes more and more our partner in coding, will it even bother to read our code anymore, or will it just look at the pictures?